From the Fans Talk Wrestling family at fanstalkwrestling.com, this is Fans Talk Lucha. It's a weekly conversation about what's going on in the world of Lucha Underground by the only married wrestling podcast team that shares both a passion for Lucha Underground as well as every cold and illness that comes our way.
Marriage.
My name is Garvin, and I'm once again joined by my wife. Say hello, wife.
Hi, wife.
This is episode 8 and covers Lucha Underground Season 1, episode 18, which aired on March 11th, 2015. Fans Talk Lucha is a podcast series that is brought to you exclusively by the paid members of the FTW community. To become a member and help keep this show funded, go to fanstalklucha.com, click the big green button, and pledge $1 a month or more. As I said, we are both suffering from colds and illnesses, maybe.
No.
I am.
I maintain that I'm not sick, it's just the weather.
So this is probably going to be a short episode so we can get in and out. So here we go. Shout-outs. First, some shout-outs to SG Metal Attitude, Arctic Wolf 00, Beanbags, Blue Cactur, Stony Guerrero, and Amory Marathos for continuing the conversation through comments over Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube this week. Now you can also continue the conversation on fanstalklucha.com. So definitely, if you want to have a good conversation, the YouTube is being wonderful right now. I think we get the most comments over on YouTube, but we are receiving them elsewhere. So yeah, if you're looking for a good Lucha Underground conversation.
If you're looking for a good time, you can always go to YouTube.
Yeah, for real. Alright, so some things you guys said, about last week's conversation. In response to our thoughts about the Big Rick versus Sexy Star match, Stony Guerrero said, I don't know if you remember the confession promo, but Big Rick says he won't spill innocent blood, and Sexy is an innocent bystander, so it made sense character-wise and storyline-wise that he didn't straight up destroy her. So I totally agree with that. That was something we did bring up near the end of that conversation last week. Rick has no real beef with her and vice versa, but at the same time, Sexy Star was out to show that she could hang, and obviously she couldn't compete with Big Rick. So in that, I was still disappointed.
I was okay with it.
Amory Marathos points out, well, it wasn't really a matter of gender, but more of the fact that Big Rick was much bigger than her. Against more normal-sized luchadors like the Crew, she could totally hang. And I guess we did see that as well, so maybe she's right, maybe I'm overthinking things. This isn't about, an inability to really display, gender equality on TV. This is just more or less, Big Rick is just huge compared to Sexy Star, so of course she wasn't going to get a lot of offense in. Blue Cactur pointed out, an interesting note, and one that I didn't really think about. I don't know if you thought about this either, but he said, the thing I don't get about the Sexy Star situation is it's fine to go to, the gender equality route, but why would she be actively seeking a 3-on-1 match in the first place? Surely having a partner in this situation would have nothing to do with gender, and Rick looking for a 3-on-1 makes little sense as well.
I think for her it's a pride thing. I agree. I don't think it's a gender thing. She just seems like she's one of those people who wants to make it, and she wants to make it on her own.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah,
there's a place for that.
It's definitely a pride thing, but again, when you look at Sexy Star and how they've built her up so far, for me at least, I was really hoping that she would be pushed to that next level, which was, really showing that she could hang with Big Rick. Regardless of what her reasonings are to be in this 3-on-1 match, it's still showing that she's confident and strong enough and strong-willed enough to want to take part in it. So I'm okay with it. Yeah, no, you're right, Blue. It doesn't make sense. Like, you don't really want to go in a 3-on-1 match. It would make more sense for her to partner up with Rick, but at the same time, they're not really friends, so.
They're also two completely different styles of wrestlers. It's not just size and it's not just gender. Their wrestling styles are completely different. They might not make sense as a good partnership.
Yeah, if this was Blue Demon, totally. She would totally partner up with Blue Demon, and fight the Crew. She did fight with Pimpinella and Masqueridas, so, I mean, there is room there for partnerships, but again, she has no real connection with Big Rick, so that particular partnership doesn't make sense. SG Metal Attitude said, I don't think we're going to get an actual competitive intergender match, especially when it's girl face versus guy face. Or in the case of Angelico versus Ivelisse, the guy is a face and the girl is a heel. A good guy shouldn't want to fight a girl, so that's why we're getting all of these comedy matches. The only argument I have against this is that we've seen face versus face work very well, or at least it started to in the Drago versus Aerostar battle. So Drago and Aerostar are both faces, they're both crowd favorites, and they were competing just to have good matches. I think you can have that dynamic when it comes to intergender matches, regardless of alignment. If it's a heel, if it's, Sexy Star versus Angelico, I would imagine they would still wrestle and wrestle competitively. You don't need to play, a good guy doesn't want to beat up a girl.
Sure, and I can see that, but also, look at our lineup right here. I guess roster is the correct wrestling term, but we've got two strong female wrestlers, and it looks like they're working on a storyline with both of them, so they're not going to blow their wad right away with these two wrestlers. They're going to build, and at some point, yes, I think we will see the matches, but they're not going to roll out the door with these fantastic, top-notch matches, because then they'd have nothing to build to.
Sure. I just hope we get past this point, because we've been at this point before, as far as guys not really wanting to wrestle girls, or larger guys overpowering the smaller girls so that he doesn't really have to wrestle. We've seen that in wrestling before. If the push is gender equality, like we've been hearing in commentary, like we've been seeing on the indies, then it needs to really be pushed.
Sure. But dun dun dun, spoilers. We'll have some of that to talk about for this week's episode.
Sure. So, Arctic Wolf 00, he said that it seems like Phoenix's attitude towards Katrina has changed. At first, he was cautious around her and didn't want anything to do with her. Even when he saved her, it came almost off as if, like he was being the traditional good guy, being honorable and just. But after the match and holding the stone like he did, it was almost as if he gave in. Even going as far as almost taunting or rubbing the kiss in Mill's face. So, we did talk about that a little bit. To me, I didn't really get the subtlety of Phoenix rubbing it in his face, but it was more or less like, this was like an injection of adrenaline as he picks up the stone and smashes Mill in the face. It's like your last resort type move. So, I don't know if I'm reading not enough into.
Oh, I agree with Arctic Wolf. I think it was quite obvious, and I liked it. I thought that was a high point in the match.
Sure. So, and I guess we'll find out. But it, even when you look at this week, if you look at what happened this week, there still does seem to be that cautiousness, that hesitation from Phoenix, on whether or not he really wants to do and follow what Katrina is saying to him. So, I don't know, it's still kind of weird, still developing, so we'll see. But definitely jump into the comments on youtube.com/the FTW podcast. Arctic Wolf 00 posted some really cool ideas about the whole Aztec traditionalists versus Cueto conversation that we had last week as well. Some really cool insight from him. So, definitely get involved in that conversation. Like I said, right now, YouTube is where the comments are, so you can get that link from fanstalklucha.com. It's up on the top. So definitely check those out. And again, wherever you guys are, keep the conversation going and mention us. All right, so let's go into what happened this week. The first match, the opening contest, was Pentagon Jr. versus our Heinous. Thoughts?
Your Heinous.
Ours. Our Heinous.
Well, I liked this match. I have come to expect very little out of Pentagon. They've been storylining him. He comes out, he breaks someone's arm. It's become the Chavos chair of Pentagon Jr. So this match I really liked. There was good wrestling. It lasted longer than 2 minutes. There were moves that we had not seen before from them. I thought it was a good match.
Yeah, it was surprising. When Pentagon Jr. first showed up, I thought he was very, very good. He definitely outshined everyone else that was in the debut match, because I think it was Pentagon Jr., Aerostar, and Argenis, in that debut match. I might be.
There were several people in the ring. Yeah, he was very talented.
Yeah. So he was very good, but then when they did this whole character change with him, as far as him, like, turning total heel, going against Chavo, and now sacrificing these guys up to his master. It's more of a real strong style brawler, short matches, nothing really technical, nothing really earth shattering, just, real basic wrestling. So to go from that 3 weeks in a row, or at least 3 matches in a row that we've seen, to something like this, which was about at least 10 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
It was great. And Arenas, that was his best match thus far. And it's a shame that it's his last match because his arm was just broken.
Supposedly. Actually, they keep going on and on about the arm, and, it's obviously just a stunt move, but to me the scariest move is, they hit Arenas in the head. It looks like 3 or 4 times this match. Each time he landed upside down in his head, I cringed. That was far more gruesome to me than the arm bend.
The press slam above, so
the upside down head scrape, thing.
It was a press slam into the corner, and Arenas his head came like within like inches of hitting the mat, but just the way the camera angle like shifted so quickly, you didn't see where his head hit. It looked
like
crazy.
He knocked it a few times when he got thrown out of the ring. It looked horrible. Each time I thought, oh, that guy needs a helmet. It was a good match. So at the end, I don't know if you were watching or taking notes, but Pentagon Jr. speaks, and he says that he's got zero fear.
Cero miedo.
Yeah, I think he's got to watch it because, you and I are children of the 90s.
Yeah.
Now, when I was growing up in the 90s, I wore a lot of t-shirts with Looney Tunes on them, and they said no fear on the back.
I feel like we talked about this when you first did it, like a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. Like episode 2 or 3 of Fans Talk Lucha. I'm sure we had this conversation already.
Is this not the first time he said zero fear?
No, he said it. He has said it every single time he comes out. That's why the fans chant it with him now.
Wait, they're chanting it? Yeah. Where was I?
I don't know.
Maybe I am sick.
Yeah. So, it is very similar to the no fear stuff that we used to see in the 90s.
All he needs is Bugs and Tweety with their arms crossed like rappers on his back. But
his mask, as well as his face paint,
so good.
Yeah, like I'm just impressed, like with the facial expressions that he gives every week. I think it's very cool.
I like the way he communicates with his hands too, because he does have the mask on. He does a lot of fancy talking with his hands, and it's good. It's a good effect.
All right, so backstage, we were met with Katrina. She interrupted Phoenix's workout again. One of those segments that we've come to know and love. Where Phoenix is, I think he was working out, or maybe he was like getting dressed. I don't know, something. But at the end of the day, she basically said to him that, the only way to finish Meal is to bury him. That because, Phoenix is the man with 1,000 lives. Mill is the man with 1,000 deaths.
I just now got that. You just blew my mind.
So this could go on forever, and I think
this could go on 1,000 times.
1,000 times. So, and we've already seen it go on once.
Okay, so 999 more
Correct.
times, guys.
But it seems like Katrina's ready to fast track this to the end. So she basically says that he has to bury Mill.
Did she say that in 2 segments?
No, well, sort of. We talked about it a little later on in the show, but she might have.
I'm sorry, I don't know what is wrong with me tonight.
So, okay. Let's real quick skip ahead, because she did then have a segment later on in the show with Mil Muertes.
Okay, so there were 2 segments.
She talked about that he is going to be returned to that pain, to the death, and is going to get put into a casket.
That actually started out really well, because they had a lot of scenes of destruction and burning buildings and things, and I thought, that is not me, by the way, if you heard that. That is my dog.
Yeah, I don't know if the mic picks that up, but we've got a dog that just, like, groans.
Disapprovingly.
No reason. Yeah.
So I was kind of excited because I thought we were going to get some backstory and that it would explain some of this, this Meal character to me. But instead, it was just Katrina talking about getting a coffin and some burying. And I thought, okay, so there's going to be a match and someone's going to lose, but no one's going to die, Katrina. Calm your tits. It's not that dramatic.
It's a casket match. get it?
Oh, so there literally will be a casket.
And that's
and
what
he
I'm getting out of it.
literally will get put in the
Yeah.
okay.
That's what I'm getting out of it. I'm getting out that it's a casket match, which it's been so long since we've seen
Isn't
it.
that super 90s?
Super 90s, yeah. Undertaker, that's his, his trademark match.
See, this is a little before I became even aware of wrestling, so that, okay.
So, yeah, most likely what we'll get is a casket match between Mill and Phoenix, but I'm concerned because I feel like this story has just started. And the thing with casket matches is that takes a guy off TV for a while.
Oh, is that the end result of a casket match?
Yeah, he's like put into a casket and then taken off TV.
To where?
Death. I mean, okay, so there's two ways to
So
go
is he
about
like
this.
off roster, like unpaid leave?
No. I mean, he's just like, it's almost like the equivalent of a hair versus hair match in that if you cut the person's hair, your opponent's hair, they're embarrassed. They're so embarrassed that they have to leave.
Are they Amish?
I don't know. That's just wrestling, man. Wrestling has something to do with hair for some reason. Okay, regardless, I would imagine it's something to do with embarrassment, but there's two ways to go about doing it. There's the standard casket match where you just put your opponent in a casket and then you close the lid and then the match is over. Kind of like an ambulance match. Have you ever seen one of those?
Yes, I have.
So you just put your opponent in the ambulance and then it's over. And that's the end of the match, but it also takes the character off TV for some reason.
I have a request for the Gilberts, if they are listening. Claudia, if you are doing your wrestling history lesson, please include a history of these matches because this is new to me and obviously it's very confusing to me.
There's one other way that they could do this casket match for it to make literal sense, but I think this is more along the lines of only Undertaker can do this. And that is the buried alive match, in that you have like a grave basically at the end of the stage, and you've got to put your opponent...
Made out of what?
Dirt, a big dirt grave, and you got to put your opponent into the grave and cover him up with dirt.
Wow.
Welcome to wrestling, lady. So, anyways, casket match. I'm guessing. That sounds cool to me, and I'm digging it. I don't care how they do it.
I hope you're right, because I'm going to be super disappointed if this doesn't happen now.
All right, so let's move on from that. We did see some more segments this week, including...
They were confusing as hell.
Well, Conan. We got another segment, much like last week, where Conan is talking about, revenge, and it's in big letters, big block letters, it's Conan's revenge. And I don't get it. I don't get why he is coming for revenge. Shouldn't Puma be the one coming for revenge?
Conan did bleed from his face.
And Puma's first championship was ripped in half. What's more important? One's a wrestler and one's a manager who just stands outside the ring.
Well, personally, I would be a little more vengeful if someone made me bleed rather than if they just broke my belt, but...
It's not just a belt. It's a wrestling championship.
It's 20 pounds of gold. So here's what I didn't understand. He was standing in water and there was water dripping all over.
Well, that's just to add dramatic effect. No, the real cool part about this was that we learned in this segment that Conan isn't just a great wrestler from the past.
He's a machine.
He isn't just a great manager. He is also like a craftsmanship level weaponsmith guy who can make like these awesome canes that can also be used as weapons that will like rip through those punching bags and like break glass and like destroy cinder blocks.
It looked from that segment like his skills might have better been put to use fixing his plumbing.
He was welding and it was...
I mean, and just public service announcement, you guys, it's March. It's flooding season for those of us who live near water, so check your sump pumps.
But
this message brought to you by Conan.
It looked pretty cool.
It did. It looked pretty sweet.
I just don't understand the significance or why I should be caring how sad and vengeful Conan is. I want to know where Puma is and why he hasn't been on TV for so long.
Puma never speaks for himself anyway. For all we know, maybe Conan is speaking for Puma because that's all he does anyway.
Okay. The next segment, even more confusing, I think.
I don't...
Cuerno, which it took me about halfway through the segment to realize it was Cuerno, but it was a guy in a mask that we found out was Cuerno. Maybe I should have known right away because of his mask, but I didn't.
It took me a few minutes too.
And he's driving in this sweet-ass vintage pickup truck from the 70s, one of those bucket seat, not bucket seats, the
bench seats with the white wall tires.
Oh, it was a
nice truck.
Pretty truck. But anyways, just driving.
That scene, I felt like I was going to have a seizure because they were doing...
It was like dubstep and like changing...
Yeah, there was a little like industry style music behind him, and they were doing these cut scenes behind the truck. So different times and cities and days. But it would have been cool, except I kind of felt like I was going to have a stroke while I was watching it.
Yeah.
And nothing else happened. That was the segment.
Well, it was weird because it was maybe a minute.
It was long enough to be confusing.
Yeah, it was a minute long, and halfway through, so about the 20 to 30 second mark, it said 15 minutes until the cage match. And then it continued to go, and then at the end, he arrives at the side of the arena, and that was it. It's like,
I mean, if you're showing up that late for a match, I mean, It's like my parents. It's like his manager needs to set his watch half an hour fast so that he's actually early for things, if this is how he handles showing up for matches. It's irresponsible.
So,
Cuerno.
you guys, you're going to have to help me understand the subtleties of why that was important.
Yeah, obviously we missed something.
Yeah. We missed something there for sure. Okay, Angelico versus Ivelisse. Got a question for you to start this off. Who is creepier when touching his opponent's reverse lower abdomen? Angelico or Pimpinella?
Angelico. It's because Angelico looks like a grasshopper.
And that phrase, the reverse lower abdomen was actually something Vampiro said this week.
Yeah.
When talking about her back.
Great job, announce table. I liked this match. This is another match I didn't expect to like. This started out strong. I was very impressed with Ivelisse. I'm not a huge fan of her character. She came out with a lot of attitude without much to back it up. I don't like her accent. But she was very strong in every way in this match, and I really liked it.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I appreciated what she brought to it. I didn't appreciate what he brought to it. And again, it goes back to that conversation about, if they're going to push the envelope with the gender equality, that they need to move past what they're doing. And I understand that this is part of Angelico's character. I mean, he's always been kind of like the I don't care type of guy where he rolls his eyes and he's kind of like, I'm too cool for school type dude. But at the same time, it's like, I want to see wrestling. I don't want to see these back and forth like cat and mouse. Maybe I want you, maybe I don't games.
Well, I just thought the athleticism, the way they were playing it was so good. And we had talked earlier about the body differences between Sexy Star and Big Rick, and I said we'd bring it up again. And the announce table likes to go on and on about how poorly mismatched Ivelisse is with Angelico. But if you're really looking at the two wrestlers, they're not physically. Yeah, Angelico.
They're probably way the same.
Well, yeah, Angelico is extremely tall, especially for, a lucha show. But he's very wiry. Ivelisse she's shorter, but I don't think she's a short woman, and she's certainly not a skinny woman. She's extremely strong.
Yeah.
So I think weight-wise, but also strength-wise, they're probably evenly matched, even though they're two different body types. And I think it made a good match. I think that some of the throws they were doing, some of the ways they were using their own weight as counterweight, it worked really well. It was very beautiful. It was kind of gymnastic, and I really liked watching it.
Yeah, I mean, overall, this was a step in the right direction, but I just feel it has those same tones. And we talked about this in the beginning of the show. I think it was SG Metal Attitude said, we're going to have these comedy style matches. It
really wasn't comedy up until the end when Angelico creepily started rubbing her reverse lower abdomen. And at that point it did become comedy because it was, it was so clearly like someone had told him, okay, 2 minutes into the match, you have to do this. And then you get a shady win and that's how it's going to play out. But I think up until that point, it was a good match.
Okay. Angelico won. So I was kind of surprised with that, but okay.
It was kind of a sloppy win.
I'm guessing we're going to get a rematch. I'm guessing it's going to go to the third final match.
Yeah, I think this is a good rivalry that they're building.
I'm curious what happens next because, there was some, disagreement between Ivelisse and, Son of Havoc. Son of Havoc kept helping her. He would move her out of the way or stand in between her and Helico, and she obviously wanted the fight.
Yeah, not cool, Beardo.
Yeah. So, all right, Johnny Mundo versus King Cuerno in the very first cage match of Lucha Underground. The rules, again, if you follow Fans Talk Wrestling at all, it seems like every company that we cover, they all have different rules for cage matches for some reason. So, Lucha Underground is no different. This time, their rules are pin, submission, and only climbing over the top. So you couldn't go through the door. So I did like that you couldn't go through the door. I like the idea of you can only escape the cage, but, pin or submission, Mundo won via pinfall. He could have escaped, but he went for pinfall anyways. Your thoughts on the match?
That was a tidy win. The match itself didn't do much for me. There were some things I liked about it though. I'm not a big fan of kicking and punching, but the crowd was really into it this time, and they had developed this kind of rhythm where one of them would kick or punch, they would chant one thing, and then when the other guy would do it, they'd chant something else. So there was definitely a span of almost a minute where they were punching back and forth.
It's the yay boo thing.
Yeah, and I really thought that was very funny. And I like Johnny Mundo's win. That was a good dramatic way to end it. It was a neat way to end the match. But otherwise, cage matches aren't really my thing.
All right, so we had 3 matches, basically 4 segments. Overall. So it felt like a really short card. Not a lot happened, but it's just that the matches had a lot of time given to them. I think, Mundo versus Cuerno was a full half. So whatever that is, 20 minutes or so. So, but yeah, overall, your favorite part of the show.
Well, my win this week was the wrestling. Not always my favorite thing, as you can obviously tell. I'm not a great wrestling fan, but I was very entertained by it this week.
Yeah, I agree. Overall, the matches were good. Seeing Pentagon Jr. finally come back to the style that he used before, it was very good to see. And again, Argenis, that match was the best match that we've seen, but storyline wise, that's his last match, so it's kind of a shame that was it, but it was a good match to say goodbye to, so. What was your fail of the week? My
fail was the segments. They were confusing. They gave me a headache. I didn't like them. It's so funny.
I'm just thinking of because the only confusing one for me. Well, okay, I guess the Conan one was confusing as well. The King Cuerno one made no sense. That was just filler.
And why are people always walking in on each other in locker rooms and while they're working out? What is wrong with these people?
Well,
Make an appointment. Use your Google Calendar.
Well, they're all there.
I don't know. It just seems rude.
Like if you think about how the building is set up, it's not like everyone has their own office.
It's a giant nasty warehouse.
Yeah, but you have your your locker room, you have your workout room.
I'm just saying, it says something when the wrestling is the most believable part of the show, and the segments are the ones where you're like, what is going on?
That's a good point. Yeah, I guess my fail is going to go to the idea that, it's weird. It's like we get 2 weeks of solid, story from some groups, and then they take 2 weeks off, and then, like, for right now, like, we haven't seen Puma. The Puma versus Cage match that we were supposed to get as far as the title match, like, that didn't happen. Crew and Big Rick weren't on TV this week, and Drago versus Aerostar hasn't been on TV for 3 weeks. So it's like, I kind of wish that they would, instead of showing me Cuerno driving in a truck, they would show me Drago and Aerostar or something like that.
Like a continuation of previous storylines?
Yeah, just something. Something to keep me, or at least remind me that that's happening.
Yeah, that would be a nice way to use the segments.
Alright, so next week, nothing has officially been said, but, we thought that this was going to happen last week, or I'm sorry, that it was going to happen this week. It did not. That includes the Crew versus Big Rick. Maybe we'll get Puma versus Cage in the title match. That was supposed to happen, or at least it was implied it was going to happen this week. And then I'm really hoping for more Drago versus Aerostar. So, anything not on this list that you want to see?
No.
Okay.
No, I'd like to see a continuation of what they've already started.
Okay. I think the only other thing that I'd like to see is Sexy Star. So if they do the crew versus Big Rick, I hope Sexy Star gets involved in some
I'm
capacity.
sure she will.
Yeah. Any final thoughts before we close out?
Yeah, I do have a final thought, and this is something that our listeners can help with. While I was listening to the show today, I came up with the idea of a Lucha Underground drinking game. So I was thinking we could drink for things such as when Vampiro says brother, when they mention that Cuerno is a hunter, when they talk about Johnny's injured leg, or when he limps hilariously on that leg, anytime Pentagon breaks an arm, stuff like that. So if you guys have any ideas, maybe we actually want to put this together and make a drinking game, you can mention that in the comments.
Yeah, Vampiro did really well for about 3 straight weeks where he didn't say brother at all. He maybe said once. This week, every single time the camera cut to him, he was saying brother.
Yeah, I think if we did use that as a drinking game rule, we would not make it through an episode of Lucha Underground.
What would be amazing is trying to do the drinking game and then record directly afterwards, because that's how we do it. We watch and then we record on Friday night, so.
That would be a terrible show.
Alright, so don't forget, you can become a paid member of the FTW community by going to fanstalklucha.com and clicking the big green button. By pledging at least $1 a month or more, you'll get early access to content, some behind-the-scenes stuff, and even some exclusive bonus content that only patrons have access to. Thank you to those who have supported so far. We are about $10 shy of our next milestone, which brings us one step closer to making this podcast sustain itself financially. Thank you for listening on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, or however you listen. If you listen to a service that lets you leave ratings and reviews like Stitcher and iTunes, please do so, and let everyone else know that they should be listening. And when you watch next week's Lucha Underground, make sure to mention us in your conversations on Twitter, Google+, and Facebook. We want to hear your reactions. See you guys next time here on Fans Talk Lucha.